Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. And oh boy, did the Russians hack DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency? Let's talk about this. But before we actually do, I'm going to give you my standard spiel if you're a longtime listener. Cybersecurity is agnostic from politics, but we're not immune from this. We are 100% going to go through both sides here. The allegations, the official government response, all this kind of stuff. Here are the facts as stated by the parties, and you can decide for yourself if they're both facts and accurate, but this is literally what is being reported from multiple sources. And here's what's going on. If you didn't catch this bit of news, and I do keep up with these things, here's what's up. Someone using a Russian IP address attempted to access the internal systems of the US NLRB, or National Labor Relations Board, using legitimate accounts that were set up by staff from the Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE. You may remember them from Elon Musk starting this whole thing, etc., etc. This is according to a whistleblower inside the NLRB. Now, the allegations are part of an affidavit that were submitted to Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Tom Cotton, he's a Republican of Arkansas, and essentially his Democrat counterpart, Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia, by essentially the NLRB IT engineer, and his name is Daniel Berulis, and basically this was done through his attorneys. Now, here are the nuts and bolts of what this allegation is. Essentially, the affidavit says that DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, as I mentioned, entered the Washington, D.C. offices of the NLRB in early March, as it did with other high-profile agencies at that time, including the OPM, or Office of Personnel Management, the Treasury Department, and others. Now, if you recall, this access by DOGE into these departments was granted by executive order. This was signed literally the day of President Trump's inauguration on January 20th of this year. And according to the affidavit, this access led to a, quote, significant data breach, end quote, that has potentially exposed the NLRB and its data to foreign adversaries. Now, if you recall during this period as well, several news outlets and government employees in these departments were stating publicly that DOGE had, quote, chaotic and unsupervised access, unquote, and thus created conditions for a greater risk of some type of incident or breach. The most concerning of these allegations, obviously, is that the Russian IPs were somehow connected to the actions of DOGE employees. Whether that's one employee or more, we don't know. Again, these are the allegations in the affidavit submitted to the Senate. So the access attempts, which were blocked, provided valid credentials, meaning valid, username and password are correct, and happened shortly after the accounts were created by DOGE staffers. The affidavit also makes other allegations about unusual things happening at the NLRB at this time, such as, quote, or not quote, but during that week that DOGE was active, DOGE employees also exfiltrated, quote unquote, exfiltrated 10 gigabytes of data from the agency to servers located in the United States. That also means it's possible that that 10 gig could have been copied or sent or possibly stolen anywhere else as well. Once you lose centralization and hardening of data, it is very easy to copy and move around, etc., etc. But I'm not speculating. That is a possibility, but that has not been stated. Just that 10 gig has been exfiltrated from that agency to move to servers located inside the United States. Another point that the affidavit makes is that internal records show that DOGE asked for their access not to be logged, allegedly turning off monitoring tools while deleting records of their access. Again, that is the allegation in the affidavit, and we are going to get to the government's response on that as well. And then there are the statements of Mr. Berulis himself, the whistleblower. He stated that on April 7th, someone taped a note to the door of his home, complete with photographs taken by a drone that appear to be showing him walking around his house or near his house. Now, taking that as intimidation, the affidavit states, as written by his attorney, and I quote, "The threatening note made clear reference to this very disclosure he was preparing for you as the proper oversight authority. While we do not know specifically who did this, we can only speculate that it involves somebody with the ability to access NLRB." Quote, This meat space action, where a threat was physically delivered to my client's home, is absolutely disturbing in its manner and the implications suggested therein. So, take that for what it's worth. That is a direct quote from the affidavit. Beirulis, also presented evidence here as well. Now, the whistleblower disclosure that he shared with Congress and other federal overseers provides evidence of DOGE's access and activities, including the creation and deletion of an account in the NLRB's cloud systems called DOGE SA _ a whole string of letters and numbers at nlrb.microsoft.com. And so SA would be basically a standard admin nomenclature. So DOGE SA, assuming, again, this is the allegation is true, then here we are that they actually spun that up. And the nlrb.microsoft.com is a fully qualified domain name that Microsoft would use. If your company is signing up for Office 365, you would get internal you would get internal addresses like, yourcompany.onmicrosoft.com. So this is very possible that this happened in this manner, primarily because essentially the government uses Microsoft's Gov Cloud for this. So Beirulis also stated that he noticed a chunk of data leaving the NLRB NXGen or Next Gen Case Management System, and then a large spike of outbound traffic leaving the network. In other words, he saw a huge amount of traffic probably going through a perimeter firewall out of the network, which is why he's talking about this. It's coming from that server's address, et cetera, et cetera. Now, FYI, the NXGen or Next Gen system contains personal information about union members or employees voting to join a union, witness testimony in ongoing cases and trade secrets, and proprietary data about companies involved in the agency's investigations. For the record, access to that data is protected by numerous federal laws, including the Privacy Act. Also, for the record, basically ongoing litigation via the NLRB is also happening against Elon Musk and some of his corporations as well. So, take that for what it's worth, but that is an actual fact. Again, only stating the facts here. So that's essentially the side of the whistleblower. Let's hear basically from the other side of this equation here, which is the federal government, because early this week, Tim Burriss, who is the NLRB's acting press secretary, denied that the NLRB granted DOGE access to its systems and said DOGE had not requested access to the agency's systems. Burriss said the agency conducted an investigation after Beirulis raised these concerns, but, quote, determined that no breach of agency systems occurred. On top of this, on Tuesday, April 15th, White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly said in a statement to NPR, National Public Radio, and I quote, "It is months-old news that President Trump signed an executive order to hire DOGE employees at agencies and coordinate data sharing. Their highly qualified team has been extremely public and transparent in its efforts to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse across the executive branch, including the NLRB." Ms. Kelly's statement also referenced an earlier communication to NLRB staff that, quote, "the agency has had no official contact with any DOGE personnel," end quote. So those are both sides of the story. Essentially, it really comes down to probably what your politics are and what you believe, but I think it's important to get the facts out there. I'm not going to give you a conclusion here. You can read what the whistleblower statement has. You can listen to what he has right here. You can also listen to essentially what the government's response was on that and make up your own decisions. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This, again, I'm not calling, left or right here. I'm calling balls and strikes. You tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but quite frankly, if this did happen and we have access potentially from Russian IP addresses, that is something that obviously needs to be addressed. On top of it, the government runs on transparency. So hopefully, to Ms. Kelly's statement, Deputy White House Press Secretary, they were transparent because the affidavit says otherwise. So take it for what it's worth. Those are the two sides of the table. You tell me. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private, secure, and informed. Take care.